Wow. Today's conversation is all about communication. Were you there for our last event?
Our last couples hangout.
Yes, it was on Saturday and it was
Talked about maximizing yourself and ourselves.
so we called it maximizing us. And we talked about you maximize by first of all investing in yourself and investing in the union, making decisions with both. But we took one thing home which we felt we should share with you. Communication is the foundation of every relationship, and communication has one thing that if we don't address can really destroy a marriage.
There are several things that we don't address can destroy the marriage.
So one of the things we're discussing today is assumptions. Assumptions destroy communication. Assumptions destroy communication. Welcome to Relationship Clinic. It's your girl Angie, and this is
Now, Rich.
We're here to share with you the truth we're learning. It's been a journey. We're still on that journey, and we promise that we'll journey with you. So Relationship Clinic is all about coaching, advising, learning together. Welcome.
Yes, we keep learning every day. We keep learning to communicate better each day, and that's very important.
We thank God for today. I'm just smiling. But this communication thing was the key issue in our marriage. We still struggle with it once in a while. And then we thank God for how far we've come. So today we are discussing assumptions destroys communication. So assumptions. What have you assumed recently? I remember one joke I heard some time ago. This couple, they were celebrating their 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
And the lady said, we thank God that we have shared these 50 years together. I'm not saying the exact words. And the man said, of course, I'm tired of this marriage already. So he assumed he heard what the wife was saying. And of course, you know the end of the story. 50 years of marriage was dissolved in one day because of assumptions. How have you assumed in your marriage? What things have you made, conversations, decisions you have made on assumptions, never verifying if it was true or not?
And that brings the part of feedback. When you communicate to someone, you wait to hear, maybe the person got you right, and the person's opinion, of course. You have to be on the same page for communication to be very effective.
This is a very sensitive subject for me because one of the things that nearly got us to a place where of saying it's over was communication. What we're still learning today is communication. And I think every one of us have areas we learn. Sometimes we are good in an area, sometimes we're not good in an area. So welcome once more. Don't forget to subscribe. Share with friends. See, together we can build an enriching environment where our marriages can thrive, our relationships can thrive, and we're better for it. So welcome once more.
Yes, welcome.
So assumptions. What have you assumed about your spouse? Have you, because of, some things that even drive our assumption without us knowing in social media. Social media tells you these are how men are. So you assume, and before knowing it, you begin to accept your spouse to be that kind of person.
You actually begin to look out for those traits in your spouse. And before you know it, you find what you're looking for.
And that's true. So one of the assumptions is feedback, what you feed your mind. So one of the things we women also feed ourselves is when they say all men cheat, you begin to scream, all men cheat. Yes, most men cheat. What does it mean all men cheat?
Yeah.
Most women are money conscious. That doesn't mean that all women are money conscious. So what are those assumption trends that you have been fed because of social media or even peers? Your peers telling you their stories. How do you decipher or sift those things from becoming a pattern in your communication? One common communication trait in Nigeria is our patriarchal society. If we begin to address that, but we must touch it. Talking from the place, men and African men, most African men, remember that when we say men, we mean most African men. Most African men grew up in a patriarchal society. We are still in a patriarchal society. It's just that we are more well informed and exposed. So they come with a superiority complex where they believe that their words should be obeyed. Then they get married.
They learn that from their parents.
Yes.
So don't blame them. Give them room and let them work on it.
I know, but when you say that, you give an excuse. Because when you say they learn it from their parents, don't blame them, give them time to learn. What can they use to learn? And that's where I have these assumptions, This assumption is that they don't even know it's an assumption. It's a way, as you said, they have grown with it. So what can they do? I think we all should actually allow the spouse give us feedback. Yeah. Because when your spouse gives you feedback, you're able to say, okay, this feedback, can we work with it? So an assumption would be, what are you laughing?
No, I'm just wondering how the interplay will happen. That why are you saying I should do this? The man says, why will you not do that?
It's not only the man, but both ways.
Yes, women are more subtle. We all know that. Most women are subtle, except when you angered them, of course.
Most. I think we need to begin to emphasize most.
Most men are more pertinent. They say this is this.
In short,
this should be this. Don't you?
In short, I went for a wedding, and I don't know if I've shared this earlier, but I think it must be shared. And in that wedding, the man kept on saying, "If your wife, you must be intelligent in all areas above your wife." I said, "What? How?" Because
that's not realistic. What of someone like a banker that married a driver?
No, number one, that love
or
dynamics.
even someone that married, both of them finished from school. Then the man somehow didn't read more or didn't invest more. The woman was kept reading.
I also think that we assume that being learned, book learned.
Yes, you do very well. No.
So what you're saying is not really. We have learned people who are poor communicators, who don't even understand the basics of marriage. Yes. So we have illiterates who understand and are committed to their marriage.
Exactly.
So the thing is, how do you open your mind? So remember that we're still discussing assumptions.
And remember, it can't be competition, because when you say you must be more learned and more, you're already competing without knowing it.
Funny enough, most people say it, but they compete. You know why? Yes, because if you are not competing, you should be able to hear the other party. You should be able to agree together where you're going to. So we have a lot of couples who are competing. They even think it's a way of life. So, but if you are, I remember we're discussing assumptions destroys communication. And so when we have talked about few assumptions, and one of them is we talked about the assumption of social media, its effect on us as husband and wife. We're discussing the second one, which is patriarchal, where most men come with a superiority complex that is inbuilt because of the society and environment we're in. And then in that consciousness, so we've talked about the social media, we talked about the patriarchal, and I wanted to just emphasize that these things, as my husband said earlier, it's they grew up with it, so they assume it's right. So how do we work around it? Now, this is a patriarchal society, the African society. We have the Western society, which is more matriarchal. That means that the woman feels that if her words are not heard, it becomes
911 call.
So these conversations are not what your marriage needs. Yes. Rather, you have to say, okay, these assumptions I grew up with, are they destroying or building up?
Yes.
And I can tell you from personal story that this is key. When I got married to my husband, even now, he still replays now married once in a while. Coming from a patriarchal society, he tends to, when you want to say, okay, this is not working, and you say it, without preparing to say it properly, I can assure you that you won't get a good answer. So if you are in those shoes, can we look at those assumptions and say, okay, this is an assumption that my words are law, and it really is not good for the marriage.
That's very true. Your words can't be law. You're not always right. You give room for the other person to express their opinion, and both of you digest it, analyze it, and choose a path that will work well for both of you in the marriage.
That's very true. But this is also not only a marriage thing. Remember that life in itself, we assume so much. So every time you're in life and you don't give people feedback, then we have an issue. Then I want to also talk about family pattern, assumptions we take from family pattern. Yes. How are you managing family pattern?
You've had that in-laws are always a bit strict towards the lady that is marrying their son or something. You already assume, you're raising up your guard that when this man says this, I'm ready with this. And the woman comes and is kind and loving.
But you might not see it.
Yes.
Because what assumptions do is that they change our perception of how we see
actually
reality.
Blindfold you. You don't see. That's the truth about it.
So today we want to remind you that what is affecting full communication in your marriage, in your relationships, might simply be the assumptions you are holding on to. I remember one lady who came to me for counseling, and it was so, she now said, "Angie, can you imagine? My husband is flabbergasted that you're the one that is saving our marriage. Because when he looks at you talking with your gold hair and nails, he assumes that you're wild. You see, an assumption, so he never gets to the place of listening to me. So there are assumptions we make. We make of people because of their dress, their look. Though there are some things that you could ascertain, but do not make a decision with those assumptions.
It's not usually as you see. What meets the eye is not the real truth. You have to dig deeper and know the person. And give room for that. Give room.
And you know, when we talk about family patterns, remember we've talked about social media effect, the patriarchal society, we're doing the family pattern. You know, if you come from an abusive home, where when you reply, there is a raised fist. So imagine having a conversation, your spouse just raises their fist. You say,
you flee first.
You know, so sometimes you don't flee, sometimes you fight back. You know, so there's a flee or you fight back.
Okay, that's true. So, please don't fight back. Flee first.
So what happens is that you are now making a conscious conversation or decision from an assumption stand from what you had seen in the past. One of the key things I also struggled with, because in looking at this, and it replays in most counseling sessions we have, is one key thing. And I wanted to share that. One key thing I assumed was, my father was a doctor, and he was a bit of a philanderer. For which one is it? Philandra. So
he loved women.
So one of the things I never wanted in my life is to marry a doctor. In short, let me tell you the gospel truth. If given a choice, in short, that was a negative for me. Still is not a thing I really celebrate, because a doctor gives of themselves to the extent that sometimes family suffers, and we have to smile, you know. So what happened was when my husband and I had some conversations that were affecting our marriage, I always had to stop at the beginning, and I always said, "Oh, this is how doctors act," because I was seeing my father, and I had to relearn that he wasn't my father. So what are the assumptions you're making that is destructive to your marriage? Is it because you don't want to be like your parents? You want to be like your parents? You know, so all those stakes, can we talk about them and, you know, have a conversation?
It takes a lot of talking about, and you exposing yourself and even sharing with your spouse that truly this is why I'm thinking this way, so that they too can understand and empathize and walk with you through the path. So
assumptions are cleared when you accept that there is a thinking pattern that might not be working for your marriage. The question is, have you accepted that this communication issue needs to be addressed?
That's the crux of the matter, truly, because most of us don't accept. Even up now, say, no, that's how I'm born. That's how. Were you born deformed? Why are you talking? That's how you were born. You know?
Also, the fourth one and the final one is your temperament. Temperament.
That's crucial.
You know, so let's say you're an extrovert. You assume that your spouse must express themselves in words and in the way you want it. So you're upset when they do not relate with you in that way. Then you're an introvert. That comes. You want your spouse to shut up so that things could go your way. So there's an assumption in communication.
There are a lot of assumptions. And at times we overplay it. Because you're an introvert and your spouse says something annoying, you now go in fully and you don't respond anymore because you're an introvert. You're overdoing it. You're overdoing it.
So we welcome you and say to you, do not stop assuming, begin to communicate.
And get feedback. Get the feedback so both of you be on the same page.
Very important.
Take time to get the feedback. Take time to get the feedback.
And when the feedback is not your reality, don't disrespect the person's opinion. Rather, explain to them why you think it's not your reality or your truth. We are not saying that the feedback should be yea and amen, but we are saying that that feedback is necessary to guide both of you. Sometimes when we express ourselves, we find out that nobody was really wrong. It's our perspective.
The way you saw it.
Yes, exactly. So I want to say to everyone here, assumption has been a great killer of communication.
Very bad, the baddest killer.
And that when your communication is broken down, issues in marriage begin and are not dealt with. Of course, fighting, anger, unforgiveness, separation.
I know some words that are spoken are not easily forgotten. So that's how I said at that time, that this is this. Look at him. Look at her. You begin to replay it in your mind and they go deeper and deeper.
I can tell you, I am part of those that struggle to forget the words that have been said to when have been hurt.
And words cannot be retraced too.
So assumptions, and when he now wants to have a conversation on a playing ground, I'm looking at, oh no, those words have been said. But thank you for the gift of the Holy Spirit. I can tell you categorically that he helps to give you insight, even on how to say things. Thank you for the gift of reading. Read books. See each other's opinion in conversation. When you're watching movies, see how the other person understands the movie. You might be amazed that it can help you when they are making decisions, why they act the way they do.
Exactly.
You know, so basically, and this also affects both our assumptions about children. You know, I had a conversation with a friend in a meeting I was in, and the lady told the son, don't if you get anybody pregnant. And I asked her, did you teach him the process? So that's an assumption that the best thing is not to teach the process. But I am saying from my stand of information that the process should be taught so that there will be no pregnancy.
Yes.
So maybe any other last words for everybody?
Well, communication is key. Assumption is the worst thing that can undo communication.
Yes.
But try and make communication better, get the feedback, give your spouse benefit of doubt so you hear clearly what they're saying and you respond appropriately and make it go down well.
See, assumptions sometimes are so embedded into our thinking pattern that we assume that we know. So the greatest gift is to unlearn certain things. Write down why you are angry, why some things spark you up, and begin to address them. I'm still addressing some, so don't be.
I am too, a lot of.
It's not good. There's another conversation for a very big audience. So thank you all. For which audience?
For the audience of two.
Audience of two.
Yes. So go to the same thing. Go to the same thing. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay, don't forget to share this with your friends, family and friends if you've been blessed. Make this weekend a conversation weekend where you remove the baggage of assumptions and really clarify what both of you are really.
Did you know assumption makes you even decide for the next one? You assume the person will like this. And I used to do a lot of that.
Yes, that's why I shouted.
A lot of that.
That's why I shouted.
I said she won't like this.
I'm still shouting.
Only to find out. Then I said, why did that happen?
I am, and the truth of the matter is, assumption also makes the other party feel that you're controlling.
Exactly.
And that's
why
why
I chose that because of you. I was looking at you with interest, and I could have just simply asked her, will you want A or B?
You know,
and saved us all the wahala. I went forward and chose B.
In short, at that time I actually felt it was controlling, and I was very bitter about it. So one day,
so you can imagine how we're thinking. She's thinking about me. I'm thinking this woman doesn't even appreciate the things that.
Because what I felt was when he's having these conversations, my mind I said, thank God I'm a strong woman. So you put me in someone's pocket.
How can you put a grown woman being into How?
Don't say that.
Is that possible?
It's possible, my people.
Can you?
It's possible.
Is it the assumption?
It's possible.
So go and deal with the assumption in your own family.
Okay.
We're dealing with that one.
So we go ahead. I hope today has really blessed you. Assumptions are real, and they are really great destroyers of communication. And when communication happens in marriage, of course, your marriage is already about to be destroyed by certain things.
The cracks are already showing.
Yes.
I know the thing, if you don't have a healthy communication, trust too will be embedded. Distrust will be embedded.
Brother.
They won't trust each other.
Share this on your social media pages. Like us on Keeping Marriage Alive Initiative, Keeping Marriage Alive on Facebook and Instagram, Alive 𝐀𝐒𝐒 Twitter, and of course, comment so that we can reply. Let's make this grow. Stop assuming. Begin to communicate. Thank you, everyone.
Join us next week for another edition
of Relationship Clinic.
Bye.